There's something very magical that happens when you write this simple phrase for 30 seconds every day. Later, I found it was actually backed by Nobel Prize winning neuroscience research. And I found that if there's something that is missing in your life that you want to change, if there are desires and dreams that you still do not have, this works faster than almost anything that I've ever come across to get what you want. The Nobel Prize winning research behind this simple idea probably cost tens of millions of dollars. But the best part about what I'm going to share with you is it's totally free and it only takes about 30 seconds. So make sure you watch this entire video all the way through, because truthfully, it may be worth millions of dollars to you as well. Now, if I may, I'd like to start this off with a little story time. I was 21 or 22 years old, and I desperately wanted to be a successful author and a successful online entrepreneur. But the cold hard truth was, I wasn't any of those things. I was getting under 100 views on every single YouTube video I was doing. I had 5,000 YouTube subscribers. Every publishing company had rejected my book, which forced me to self-publish. And I was making less than $1,000 per month. But everything changed when I met a man named Bob Proctor. He was a gray-haired, 80-something-year-old man. And he told me I could have anything that I wanted if I did exactly what he said to do, until I found out he was lying or he didn't know what he was talking about. Now that sounded like a gross exaggeration, but clearly my way was not working, so I gave it a try. And he told me to get a piece of paper and write down that I was a globally successful author, speaker, and online personality, making millions of dollars and inspiring millions of people. And he told me to write this statement down on paper every single day, that I needed to commit it to memory, and then create a financial hypnosis MP3 that I would listen to every day to change my thinking patterns. Well, do you know, in just a few years, I actually had books translated into other languages. I was getting paid by the #1 English publishing company in the world, Penguin Random House, and I had earned millions and millions of dollars online. Now, I admit at the time, I didn't understand it all, right? Like, how could you write a little thing on paper and then magically start changing your life? And maybe you have that same skepticism. And it wasn't until years later that I started to study neuroscience and the human brain. And what I discovered was that your entire reality is created based off of habitually programmed brain cells and neural activity. And while writing this little mantra and carrying it with me, I was firing new cells in my brain as opposed to the same ones that were neurologically programmed for me to struggle and not get what I wanted. And the science behind this is pretty clear in hindsight. So allow me to explain. The brain is made up of many nerve cells, which communicate by sending electrical and chemical signals to one another. These electrical signals control your body and behavior via your neurons. And these neural links between neurons are called brain synapses. But what exactly is a brain synapse, and what does it have to do with getting what you want in life? It's basically a connection. It's one cell communicating with another. Another neuron, the receiver, can receive electrical information from another cell. And when neural transmitters connect to an electrical signal from one another, that is called a synapse. So your brain runs on electricity. If electrical signals pass through the cells, they release chemicals or neurotransmitters into these synapses. Now, I want to play a quick video so you can see this neural connection happen in real time. Now, as you can see on that video, these neurotransmitters essentially are telling the receiver cell to either activate their own electrical charge, which sends the signal to the next neuron in the chain. And then basically, it's like a giant domino effect that can allow you to rebuild your brain for anything that you want by building new neurological connections or networks. And in the year 2000, the Nobel Prize for Physiology and Medicine was awarded to a medical doctor. His name's Eric Kandel. And during his Nobel Prize winning speech, he stated, direct quote, "We have found that neural networks of the brain are not fixed." And what he's saying is he discovered through neuroplasticity that your brain can be changed. It's not fixed. It can be rewired fundamentally for an entirely new reality. In other words, if you're not getting what you want, it's just because your brain has memorized a very limiting neural program for your entire life through your emotions, your circumstances, and your environment. And what happens is your brain installs hardware and software just like a computer does. And for all of my life, I didn't believe that I was very smart. I didn't believe I was very special. I did really poor in school. I was diagnosed with ADD. And all of these early childhood experiences and memories fired cells in my brain that formed neurological patterns. These patterns were that I wasn't that smart. I was just average. And therefore, as a young adult in my 20s, I was now living out those neurological patterns as a struggling author that couldn't figure it out. And this is why it never matters how badly you want something, right? How hard you try. Sometimes you work so many hours and you still don't get it. The reason is because the cells of your brain have been neurologically programmed for you to be average, for you to struggle. And your brain has been taught that that is the reality that it needs to create. Furthermore, Nobel Prize laureate Kandel proved that it is scientifically true that you can change that. He found that the synaptic connections in your brain actually double when new cells are activated from learning something different or new or having a new experience. So, for example, using this simple mantra that Bob Proctor taught me and writing it on paper and using it every day was activating new cells in my brain, and I was actually doubling the neural connections in my brain. So in other words, instead of living from the old neural patterns of Jake Ducey as a struggling author and entrepreneur, I use neuroplasticity to build new neural connections as Jake Ducey, the successful author and online entrepreneur making millions of dollars and inspiring millions of people. And Kandel found that if you do not repeat this new memory, if you do not repeat the new neural patterns that you're signaling in your neurons, you actually lose all the neural connections that you built. Now, in hindsight, I can see why Bob Proctor actually asked me to write this every day and carry the card with me everywhere I went and listen to a success hypnosis audio. This repeated action is what activated new brain cells and caused new long-term neural connections to form. And the result was that I started to change my reality very, very quickly. And if you want to use my free success hypnosis, it's pinned to the comments and in the description right there down below. It's jakeshypnosis.com. It's my free success hypnosis that I use that started to really change my life. Now, Kandel, the Nobel Prize winner in neuroscience, summed up his research as this: repetition leads to strengthening of synaptic connections. This is the fundamental principle of learning and varies as a function of repetition. Without that process, you can grow new synapses, but they retract and you cannot retain memory. Now, I'd like to give you how to apply this in 3 easy steps, but the repetition, as just suggested, is so important. So first is to pick a 1 to 2 sentence statement of what you desire and then rewrite it in the present tense. So for example, I was no longer Jake Ducey, the struggling author trying to figure it all out. I was Jake Ducey, the globally successful author, speaker, and online personality, making millions of dollars and inspiring millions of people. Now, secondly, after you've clearly defined your new reality and you've wrote it in 1 to 2 sentences in the present tense, every day write it on an index card and carry it with you, looking at it as much as possible so you can reinforce and reactivate these new cells. Now, the last thing that I did is use it with a success hypnosis every single day to get the complete neurogenesis process. I think it's the best way to do it as quick and fast and easy as possible. My free success hypnosis is right there down below. It's pinned to the comments and in the description. It's jakeshypnosis.com. And if you scroll to the comments, it's pinned as the top comment or in the description right there down below. And what I would do is listen to this all day. When I stretched, when I ate, when I cooked, I programmed this into my mind so deeply that I entirely thought the old reality didn't exist anymore. Now, the crazy thing about that is in neuroscience, there's 2 terms. One's called pruning and one called sprouting. Pruning means that old neural connections fall apart, they prune, they disappear. And sprouting means you build new ones. As you repeat this process of taking your statement, writing it every day on an index card, and using a simple success hypnosis to rebuild your brain, what happens is you prune your old neurological reality and you sprout a new one that, in my personal experience, was far better than anything I could have ever imagined was possible.